did whatever resulted in the charge, and so that the police department can get a better understanding from the individuals of the impact of this on them, and talk about things from their viewpoint. So this would help fund the facilitator services. Another research area is that in our carrying a pistol without a permit those kinds of cases, approximately 2/3 of those are young people, 18 to 25 years old. And then we went back, and we could only easily go back in our system to 2007, and we tracked their records forward. And from what we had in our record, there was a 70% recidivism rate, and not for carrying without a permit, but for more serious offenses and typically violent felonies. So the standard sentence imposed by the court now is 30 days in the workhouse, the rest of the time stayed. And I say it's not having much of an impact. And so it would be to do some research to help plan and implement a more effective and alternative consequence. For example, are we better off, instead of having people spend 30 days in the workhouse, maybe spend so many hours working with a program out in the community? The mayor recommended adding, this is all one-time funding, so it's really $100,000. We've been funding restorative justice for juvenile and adults at the level of about $45,000 for the last few years. The mayor recommends adding an additional $55,000 onto that. We have been increasing the numbers of people referred each year. The police department has implemented a pre-charge diversion program for juveniles. We're in the process of doing that at the adult level. Again, we are going to have to do a manual workaround for a while until the police department gets their new case management system in, but a valuable resource. And again, consistent with all the work that the city's engaged in the criminal justice front. Two ongoing funding items in the criminal area is $65,000 for a domestic violence hotline, so that services can be provided immediately, advocacy services for domestic abuse victims. And then, and I know you probably, all of us who have any access to federal funds, have been hearing from all the department heads that federal funding has been going down lately. And so we now have a $50,000 shortfall in our community attorney program. It once funded two full-time, 2 of our 5 community attorney salaries, and now next year there will be a full $50,000 shortfall. And so it's to fund that shortfall. The other thing I will mention is that a couple of these items are new ongoing funding items. There was a right sizing, I think is what the finance department is calling it, of our criminal division budget with a $200,000 reduction. So even with these additional new ongoing items, there's still that reduction, although reduction, I know, is not what we're supposed to say, because it increases to for increased salaries and other increased costs. Reduction in growth, I guess, is that? Yes. Okay. I'm getting a nod from Ms. Christensen over there. Moving to the civil division, already mentioned the 2 programs there, client services and civil litigation. In a couple of our measures there, we have quite a few, but one that we do track is the number of our civil litigation cases that are settled versus resolved. We've been able to keep that at least a 50% level, where we resolve in court at least half of our cases, which is quite different from if you talk to any litigator in a private law firm, 90+% of their cases tend to settle, and less than 10% actually get resolved in court. So it's an important measure for us to continue to track to make sure we're not getting too soft. And we've got, as you council members know who spend time in settlement conferences with our litigators, they are a really good, talented tough group of people. And then for that, the 50% of cases that we do not settle, we win. In 2014, we won 95% of those. So again, a testament to their skill. And almost all of our cases are in federal court, which tends to command a higher level of practice, and because the federal judges, have a lower caseload than the state court judges. And so they expect and demand, higher levels of preparation from the lawyers in front of them. Just two enhancements recommended by the mayor for our civil division, and these are actually both in the general fund. However, even though civil division is funded out of the self-insurance fund, so they'll show up, I think, in our criminal division funding lines, even though they are related to civil matters. And one is this Business Made Simple initiative, where the mayor asked me to help lead this project. I think because we're Switzerland, we work with all departments, and we love all our clients equally. Although maybe the council as a client more than others, but particularly at budget time, to help identify ways that we can improve our regulatory and other process to make it easier and simpler for businesses, particularly small businesses, to locate in Minneapolis and to grow right here. And so this would be used when IT and the involved departments are now in the process of starting to design the customer portal that businesses will use to get licenses, to submit plans, to do all these things, and just making sure that we're simplifying and integrating business processes as much as we can behind the scenes, so that it'll be a very simple, user-friendly process from the customer standpoint. So plain language consulting, maybe some graphics help, et cetera, is what that money's about. And then ongoing, the mayor's recommended $40,000 a year for negotiation skills training. And we've had, I think, over 100 employees who do negotiation as a regular part of their job duties go through this 3-day intensive training put on by an outside consultant. And the feedback we get from that is just uniformly that it's extremely valuable, best training they've ever been to. So I think it's money well spent as we continue to improve the city's skills. And then something else I'm particularly proud of is that the employee engagement survey results in terms of measures, we're supposed to include measures here, is that the city attorney's office is one of the most, if not the most engaged department in the city. And I just have an amazing team and just an amazing group of lawyers and paralegals and support staff. At the end of the year, they put together a PowerPoint, although my film student son, who's just started as a freshman this year in film school, turned it into a video last year, but he may not be available to do that this year. Sorry for bragging. But with how many, it was like 1 million pages of documents are produced in the civil division. And I can't remember how, it's just massive amounts of work that the office puts out. But then I know there's all this creative city making going on and creative city placemaking, and we are very innovative in the city attorney's office. So when we got our new little tiny miniature trash bins, we had a contest, a decorating contest. So these are a few of the entries, and you can come view them yourselves in our offices if you'd like. Any questions?
I think our lawyers have way too much time on their hands. It is good to keep the staff engaged, and it's terrific work that you all do. So thank you for that. Are there any additional questions? Another attorney speaks in. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, 95% success rate is extraordinary. You guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Should be highlighted. You're right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we should settle less then.
Lawyers are in.
Oh, I wanted to say, I think, the satisfaction rate from your employees. I mean, I think it speaks to your chili contest and how awesome it is. So that chili contest is fantastic. I would be hurt if I wasn't invited every year to be a judge in that contest.
Okay, all
I like
right,
wearing the robes myself. That's terrific.
all right. And we do have an annual salsa
It's also-
judging contest. So if you want to be a
We've
judge,
never-
just
we've
we'll
never
sign
been
you up.
invited.
For my colleagues' point of view, or for their information, we wouldn't be stretching this if we didn't looking for Patrick Todd, who's our next presenter. So I don't know if the assessor's office is available for the next one. So,
Oh,
okay, we'll be transitioning in here. We're good to go. Okay.
all right.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank
Ms.
you
Siegel.
all very much.
Hey, Patrick Todd.
I have it on a flash drive.
Yeah, just stick it in here. That's what we did.
Oh, okay.
You need help? Are you good?
I think we're good. We're good. So apparently right there.
Take your time. No worries at all.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee
You've
members.
got quite an act to follow. I hope your department has done equal garbage and decorating contests.
It is a very difficult act to follow, but it's obvious you saved the best for last. So
Obviously, though.
it makes me feel pretty good. And I think we're loaded up. That's great. Okay. Again, Mr. Chair, committee members, Patrick Todd from the Minneapolis Assessors Department, giving the mayor's 2016 recommended budget for my department. The information or the supporting information can be found on pages F2 through F9 in the mayor's more thorough budget. Our slide number 2 is a illustration of our department's organizational chart. It is a chart that's developed more on a function and a customer service or a end user perspective. If you'd like a more of a traditional style org chart, we definitely could provide that after this meeting. Just to maybe go a little bit about, talk a little bit about staffing under the property types. We have a downtown central business district staff of 3. We have then a commercial and industrial staff of 4 that handle all the commercial industrial outside of the central business district. We have 21 or 22 appraisers, residential and multifamily, which would be duplex, triplex. And then last but not least would be we have 2 condominium appraisers and we have 2 apartment appraisers as well. And that's really the core of my team. We do have some support staff and some other positions that are equally important, but as far as getting the assessment out, these are some of the primary appraisers that we have in the office, or duties, I should say. Next slide is just a budget summary. We had a budget for 2015 of $4,869,000. The mayor's recommended budget for 2016 is a little over $5 million. It does include 1 FTE for $114,000, which will the cost all going in costs I think are $114,500. That will move us from 36 FTEs to 37 FTEs. Talking about some of our core programs, we really only have 1 core program in our department. When we took a look at it, we are very heavily mandated by statute on every year we need to get 130,000 valuations done a year, and by doing that, we're looking at valuations, not only a classification, but valuation as well. And in addition to the primary function of getting the assessment out, we're also looking at property tax administrative programs, and those property tax administrative programs include veterans exclusions, homesteads, tax exemptions, open space, blind disabled programs, amongst others. Services that we provide, when I kind of mentioned that we look at about we value 130,000 parcels a year by statute. We need to be looking at 20%. And then so that after every 5 years, we see 100% of the city. We do 130,000 property record management. When we're talking about ELMS and we're talking about data that the public likes to access, having accurate building data, it's a pretty monumental bit of property records and management. We also do taxpayer notification. We do valuation notices, truth and taxation notices. We also do neighborhood announcements. When my staff are looking at that 20%, we do send out announcements to the neighborhoods as well, telling people we're coming through and that they can expect us. And if they'd like to set up appointments, they can give us a call and we'll do an appointment specific to the convenience of that homeowner. So we do taxpayers appeals and reviews. These are informal reviews on local and county boards of appeal. We do tax court litigation. This last year, we had 570 parcels under tax court appeal, and we have an outstanding of around 1,300 tax court appeals currently in backlog. And then last but not least, but we do now neighborhood and business relations. We do neighborhood meetings. We do the Citizens Academy. We also do high school and career fairs. Some of that is just getting our profession out in front of people. We're finding that it's very difficult to get people attracted into assessing, much because they don't really realize what we do. And getting out there and trying to get our face in front of people. And we all like what we do, and giving them just some more information maybe might encourage some people to consider joining the very honorable profession of being an assessor. Our core program is the appraisal and assessment administration. When we talk about the goals, we feel that we fit well under the One Minneapolis City goal, as well as a city that works. And when it comes to values, we feel that our department fits well under the equity and the growth value for the city of Minneapolis. If you'd like, I can go into those if you'd like.
Thank you very much, Mr. Todd. I must say, the fact this department does what it does with the staffing that it has, especially considering the growth within the city. I mean, it's putting a lot of pressure on especially your apartment inspectors, condos, and new construction that's happening in the city. It's appropriate that we follow statute, and your compliance with tax court is notable. So I hope that if you'd like to expand on that and kind of clean up my language and explain
Sure.
the importance of what you're doing
Sure.
for the city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'll probably expand on it a little bit later in my report. If we go to the next slide, if we need to come back to, I can expand on the values and the goals. But I think in the essence of time, let's just get to the meat of my presentation. So under the our core process, the mayor has recommended what's called a business application manager. It's a fully loaded position. It's around $114,500. It is one FTE. It provides support for the appraisers as well as the staff in technical support. It supports the appraisers and staff in data analysis as well as identifying real estate trends within the real estate market. Which is really, I would say, three things that we have staff that do that, but we don't have enough staff that do that. And so this position would be, I think, a very important position within our office, considering that there are so many organizations that depend on the fact that we have the analysis available when Star Tribune calls or the legislature calls. When we're doing real estate trends for the Department of Revenue, they're very interested to know what trends are in Minneapolis and the reports that we have to provide for them. So to take the next slide, what actually will this position do? So it's a business application manager is the classification title, but if you were in my office and if you were talking to anybody in my office, this is really what's called a modeler. These are the staff that not only the city of Minneapolis, but just every jurisdiction has, every larger jurisdiction has. And for us to be successful at getting valuations done, for us to get 130,000 evaluations done each year with a staff of 36, it just isn't feasible to get that many physically appraised if we were to do them one at a time. So we rely upon a process called the computer-aided mass appraisal process. So you're looking at statistical data, you're looking at sales, you're looking at changes in characteristics, and then you put that information into the system, and then you start working through the application to try to come up with the best statistical data that measures whether the assessment is accurate or not, whether there's built-in biases into that system or not. So we have one business application manager in our office. It's or a model, I should say. We really need two for a number of reasons, and I'll get into those. It's with the amount of transparency that we have in today's market, and with the number of people looking at values and the information that's available on the web, having accurate data, having accurate valuations is very, very critical. In addition, with property taxes being as much of a burden as they can be on a property owner, having the wrong value in your particular property, especially if it's too high, really will place an undue burden on that particular property owner. So getting the values right the first time is really very, very important to us, and I think it'd be very important to the city council as well. So in addition to doing what this modeler would be doing is models for residential, and there are models for commercial, industrial, as well as apartments. They'll hopefully be able to do some refining of our existing models. We do have one modeler, but we don't really have the time or the resources to really refine the models that we currently use, even though the current models does result in statistical a statistical level of accuracy that is sufficient for the Department of Revenue. We think we can actually drill down and do a little bit better on more of a ward, not to say ward, but a community basis, or maybe even a neighborhood basis if we could get the data accurate enough. This modeler will also be doing conducting statistical research, let's say time trends, sales ratio studies, and again, statistical reports for the Department of Revenue. They'll monitor and test for data integrity, which is really important. But the city of Minneapolis rolling out the ELMS project, the Enterprise Land Management System. Again, and the city portal for that matter. If we don't have the right data in the system that it's going to be drawn upon, then all the reports and all the analysis that's going to be done after that point is relatively worthless. So having that right data the first time is critical. When the council members or legislator, or when Gene Ranieri from IGR calls and said, I need to know if we sunset a TIF district or if we add a TIF district, what's that going to happen to property taxes? We need to have the resources to be able to help facilitate that analysis. We currently really don't have that. We're at this point in time constantly pulling people off other projects to do that analysis, or it's going to fall on myself or my director, Rebecca Malmquist here, which I do apologize. I should have, right out of the gate, I should have introduced Rebecca Malmquist as my department's director. I apologize. So just being able to have someone that we can, when the phone call, when you call, or Gene Ranieri calls, or a legislator calls and says, I need this analysis, that I've got a resource that I can call and have them do the report so that I can get that turned around in relatively quick order. Website development. If you take a look at our website, it used to be pretty good by industry standards a few years ago. We're definitely lagging behind in what we can do on the website. And lastly, it's a department liaison for a lot of the other departments. We work very closely with IT, with CPED, GIS, Reg Services, Finance, and Public Works. It's kind of funny because when you want to partner with somebody, you often have to bring something to the table, but we don't have anything to bring to the table. When they ask for a liaison, it's myself oftentimes stepping in for a committee that might be better suited for an IT person. We just don't have an IT person to be able to have somebody sit down at those meetings. So I kind of wear that hat as well. This person would be a definite benefit from that perspective. So why is this position needed? We have both external demands and internal demands. Kind of referring to the council chair or committee chair, Quincy, we've seen significant growth in City of Minneapolis over the last 10 and 15 years. We've seen great growth in our commercial tax base, and then the condominium as well as in the apartment, more so in the apartments lately. As the city grows, so does our department. It just has to go hand in hand, and it's not unlike Reg Services. As the city has seen significant growth in the condominiums and the apartments and the commercial, and there's more permits, there's more inspections that need to be done. We've had to grow the regulatory services, and same with the CPED. As we've seen economic development happen, the growth of the planners, the growth of MDR has to happen in order to keep up with the demand of the growth of the city of Minneapolis. And we're following on the coattails. As these projects are done, we're out there, we're out inspecting these properties, we're out measuring these properties, we're valuing them, and then we're having to defend many of them in tax court. So it's just oftentimes an oversight that I think that we don't get lumped in, or we don't get associated with growth and development with the city of Minneapolis. So that's one external demand that's placed on our department. I referred a little bit to website, but technology and innovation, that's really has passed us by. We are lagging in that. Hennepin County has a much more robust technology section in their assessor's office. They're going to be rolling out next month something called eHomestead, what a terrific, application that you could sit in your home and after you close on your property and be able to file a homestead. It makes perfectly good sense. But if you don't have the time and resources, now I'm sure I could probably put a project together with IT, but I still don't have, I'll be pulling appraisers off the street in order to be able to sit at committees and try to develop this. And I just don't have the resources to be able to do that. Dakota County, if you ever have a chance to go out to the Dakota County and take a look at their website, I absolutely love their website. I wish we could model after it. If you are a property owner or a taxpayer in the city of Minneapolis, you can go out to your website if you lived in Dakota County, put in your address, and it pulls up a picture of your house, and it also puts it on a map and shows where your lot is in relation to the rest of the neighborhood. If you ask for your property characteristics, it'll populate all your property characteristics. If you say, boy, find me some sales that are like my house, you click one button, it populates a map, it puts dots out on there. You just hover over each one of those dots. It shows you a picture of that comparable sale. It shows you when it sold and how much it sold for. It tells you if you go out to your property site and you want a copy of your tax bill, it's right there. If you want a payment stub, it's right there as well. We don't have any of those features on our website. And again, it's not that we couldn't. It takes time, it takes resources, and it takes a commitment to try to keep up with the industry. And I think we're lagging behind. And then just there's this appetite for information. We really like working with the Star Tribune or working with the NPR when Eric Roper shows up or calls and said, I'm doing a story on industrial properties. We're very happy to help because we think that anytime you can get assessment information out there, it works really well for us. It's staying for Stephen Brandt. But if you go through and I look at my emails, it's an exchange of 16 emails with Mr. Roper on industrial information. We're constantly trying to get the information, and sometimes we provide information which then creates more questions, and then we do more research. And again, it would be the wrong thing to say we just don't have time to be able to do that, but we really don't have the resources, so we have to find the time, and I oftentimes find the time for them. But same with the legislature and same with the open portal. We don't have a presence on the city of Minneapolis' open portal. It's not that we don't want to be, we just don't have the resources. And this position would be somebody that would be dedicated to making sure that we are a player in that open portal because we have important data that I think people really want. From internal challenges, when I started, we had 46 people in my department. 10 years later, we were down to 41. 10 years after that, we were down to 35, and we're at 36 today. If you take a look at when I started, we have more complex properties today than we did back then, and yet we went from 46 down to 36 at this point in time. So it's a trend that I think shouldn't have happened, but obviously the city had desperate needs to tighten its belt, and we have done that, and I think we're on the positive side of the real estate market as well as our budgets, and I think it's as far as I'm concerned, it's a time to try to maybe bring some of those positions back that we gave up during those lean years. Over the last 5 years, we did a study for the Department of Revenue, and over the last 5 years, we've had significant turnover. We've only been fully staffed 28% of the time. So 72% of the time we've been short some staff because of retirements, because of losing people to other jurisdictions. We're working hard to make sure that we're competitive on wages and that we're making working in the city of Minneapolis an enjoyable place to be working. So, but that true has added to some of our challenges. We have a high parcel to appraiser ratio, one of the highest in the metro area. So when people come to work for the Minneapolis, at least in our assessor's office, they're going to work on more property and more parcels than if they were to go to any other city or jurisdiction in the local metro area. So, and last but not least, we just really, and I said this before, we really don't have staff that has the ability to do enough research and analysis for special projects. And I think from the public's perspective, they think we do. And so when they call and they say, can you pull this data for me? It's like, oh, I wish we could. And we do, but it's not something that I wish I could be able to pull up my fingertips. Can we go to the next?
Before you go to the next slide, Mr. Todd,
Sure.
Councilmember Yang has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Todd, with regards to the high parcel to appraisal ratio, to get us in line with, let's say, the top 5 lower ratios, I mean, how many more FTEs does your office need?
Through the chair, Councilmember Yang, I had done this analysis I think 2 years ago, for 2 or 3 years ago for Mayor Ryback. And we, to be competitive with, on a per parcel basis, I did the analysis not only on a per parcel basis, but under number of cases per appraiser and number of dollars based on budgets. We were about 7 to 8 staff less than Hennepin County for equal work. So if they had one appraiser for 7,000 and we're at one appraiser for 9, to get to that 7,000 number, we needed to have about an extra 7 FTEs. If we, based on their overall budget divided by the number of staff that they had, that was coming out to X dollars. If that's what they were at, I said that X number of dollars times our number of parcels should have resulted in this many people. And it consistently was between a 6 and a 9 number of FTEs that we are behind from competitive, for at least from Hennepin County. And I'd be happy to share that data with you.
Mr. Chair, if I may follow up on that. So, outside of just, let's say, employee satisfaction in terms of, just the high workload parcels, what's the other, or what are other value adds that could happen in a situation where the parcel to appraiser ratio was lowered? I mean, is there, more in terms of, let's say, could the appraiser spend more time at, let's say a certain parcel, thereby giving us a better appraisal and thereby, increasing revenue? I mean, is there anything like that, or is it just purely, let's say, on the employee side?
Sure. Through the chair, Councilmember Yang. But if we were to have more staff, we would have a better assessment, and I think we'd have less than litigation. There's usually a very close correlation to the more time you can spend on your assessment,